Hey everyone, I need to get this off my chest. My name's Alan, and I run a small but successful construction business. I've always prided myself on working hard to provide for my family, my wife May, and our teenage son, Ryan. Life wasn't always perfect, but I thought we were solid. Turns out, I was wrong. It started small, just little things that didn't sit right. May was always on her phone, but lately, she'd been smiling at her screen more than at me. I tried to tell myself it was harmless, maybe just her texting friends, but then I noticed our joint account was getting drained faster than usual. She'd make excuses, saying it was groceries or things for Ryan. Still, something felt off. The real red flag came one evening when I was helping Ryan with his math homework. His phone buzzed, and he got up to grab a snack, leaving it on the table. I didn't mean to snoop, but the preview on the screen caught my eye. It was a text from his friend. Something about how cool Jason was and how Ryan was lucky his mom's boss treated him like a son. Jason. I'd heard May mention him before, her boss at the car dealership where she worked. Flashy guy, always bragging about his cars and connections. I didn't like him from the start, but May always brushed it off, saying I was being paranoid. When Ryan came back, I casually asked, "So, who's Jason?" He hesitated, then said, "Mom's boss. He's pretty awesome. He even took me and Mom out to lunch last week." That hit me like a brick. Why hadn't May mentioned this? I played it cool and said, "Oh, that's nice. What kind of stuff does he talk about?" Ryan shrugged, grinning. "Just like life advice and stuff. He's got all these cool stories about his cars and trips. Honestly, Dad, he's kinda like the dad I always wanted." That stung. I felt a lump in my throat but forced a smile and nodded. Sounds interesting. Inside, though, I was boiling. My own son idolized this guy, and May had been keeping it from me. I needed to figure out what was really going on. After that conversation with Ryan, I couldn't let it go. Something wasn't adding up. That night, I watched May closely, trying to see if anything seemed out of place. She was on her phone, as usual, her face lit up by the screen, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Who you texting?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. She glanced up, startled, and quickly locked her phone. "Oh, just Amy from work. We're organizing a fundraiser." I nodded, pretending to believe her, but I knew Amy had quit the dealership months ago. That was the moment I decided to dig deeper. The next day, while May was at work and Ryan was at school, I went through our finances. I didn't want to, it felt wrong, but I needed answers. Our joint account had multiple withdrawals labeled as miscellaneous expenses, all tied to places I'd never heard of, fancy restaurants, high-end boutiques, even a luxury hotel. I couldn't wrap my head around it. May and I lived modestly. We had plans for vacations, college savings for Ryan, things we'd worked years to build. This wasn't us. Then I found the real gut punch. A credit card statement from a card I didn't recognize, opened under her name. I scrolled through the charges. Expensive dinners, spa treatments, and payments to someone named Jason Pierce. I sat there, staring at the screen, my stomach in knots. Could it really be what I thought? Was May funding her boss's lifestyle with our money? When Ryan got home that evening, I tried to act normal, but I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd found. Over dinner, I asked him casually, "So, how's school? You still talking to your buddy about Jason?" He laughed. "Yeah, I told him Jason might let me ride in one of his sports cars sometime. Mom said she'll ask him when she sees him next." The knife twisted deeper. May wasn't just keeping secrets, she was involving Ryan in them too. Later that night, while May was showering, I took her phone. My hands were shaking, and I hated myself for stooping this low, but I had to know. I opened her messages, scrolling past chats with coworkers and friends until I found it, Jason Pierce. The thread was long. Too long for someone she called, just my boss. Messages about missing our talks and can't wait to see you again made my blood boil, but it was the photos that sealed it. May had sent him pictures of herself, dressed up, smiling, clearly more for him than me. I couldn't breathe. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. When May came out of the bathroom, I shoved the phone back on the nightstand and pretended to be asleep. I barely slept that night. The evidence was there, staring me in the face. The woman I'd loved for over 15 years was betraying me. But I wasn't about to let her or Jason ruin everything I'd worked for. The next morning, I woke up early, my mind racing. I couldn't let this simmer anymore. I needed to confront May, but I also needed to be smart. If Jason was involved, this wasn't just personal, it could become financial, and I couldn't let that happen. I decided to play it calm. Over breakfast, May was her usual self, chatting about her day ahead. Meanwhile, I was studying her like a stranger. How could she sit there, sipping her coffee, acting like nothing was wrong? "So May," I started, keeping my tone even, "you've been working a lot of overtime lately. Is Jason really pushing you that hard?" She glanced up, surprised. "It's not so bad. We've been busy at the dealership. You know how it is this time of year." I nodded, but my grip on my coffee mug tightened. "Ryan mentioned Jason took you two out for lunch. That's nice of him. Didn't realize bosses were that generous these days." Her face froze for a split second before she laughed it off. "Oh, that. It was just a one-time thing. He wanted to thank the team for a good quarter." I didn't press her further, but her reaction told me everything I needed to know. She was lying. When May left for work, I started my plan. First, I called my lawyer, a no-nonsense guy named Frank who had helped me draft contracts for my business in the past. "Frank, I need to talk to you about something personal. It's about my wife." Frank didn't ask questions. We set a meeting for later that afternoon, and I spent the rest of the day gathering what I needed: financial records, photos of suspicious charges, and screenshots of her messages with Jason that I had emailed to myself. At the lawyer's office, I laid everything out. Frank was calm and methodical, but his expression darkened as he looked over the evidence. "This is serious, Alan," he said finally. "If she's diverting money to this guy, you could be at risk. First thing we do is lock down your accounts. We need to make sure she can't clean you out." He walked me through the next steps, freezing joint credit cards, separating my personal finances, and gathering more evidence before making any sudden moves. He also mentioned the dreaded word, divorce. I wasn't ready to think about that yet. All I knew was that I needed to protect myself and Ryan. When I got home that evening, May was in the kitchen, making dinner like everything was normal. I sat down at the table, watching her stir the pot, wondering how long she'd been lying to me. She turned and smiled. "You're quiet tonight. Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, just a long day at work. What about you? Anything exciting happen?" Same old, she said, shrugging. I wanted to scream at her, demand answers, but Frank's advice rang in my head: don't confront her until you have everything in place. So I bided my time. But inside, the anger was building. The days that followed felt like a high-stakes game of chess. I was moving carefully, strategically, while May seemed blissfully unaware that I knew. If anything, she was more cheerful than usual, spending more time with Ryan, making elaborate dinners, even laughing at my terrible jokes. It felt fake, though. Every smile she gave me just twisted the knife deeper. One evening, while she was out working late, I went back to her phone. It wasn't something I was proud of, but I needed more evidence. This time, I took my time going through her messages. There were dozens of texts to Jason. Some were casual, like updates about her day, but others made my stomach churn. "Last night was perfect. I can't wait to see you again. You're the only one who really gets me, Jason. Alan doesn't notice anything. He's too busy with his business." That last one made me grip the phone so hard I thought I'd crack the screen. Too busy? I'd been working day and night for her and Ryan, making sure we had a good life. And this was what I got in return? I took screenshots of every incriminating text and sent them to myself. I even found a message where Jason joked about taking their little family on a vacation. I felt sick. Was he trying to replace me? I needed to know more about Jason, so I started digging. A few Google searches told me what I already suspected: he was a sleazeball. There were several articles about lawsuits against him for shady business practices, and a couple of reviews from angry customers accusing him of fraud. But it got worse. I found a post on a local forum warning people about Jason Pierce. According to the poster, he had a history of getting involved with married women. One woman claimed he'd ruined her marriage by convincing her to funnel money from her husband's business to invest in his dealership. She ended up divorced, broke, and humiliated. My blood was boiling. This guy wasn't just after my wife, he was after my livelihood. I shared all of this with Frank the next day. He sat back in his chair, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "Alan, I've seen guys like this before. He's a predator. If you don't act fast, he'll bleed you dry. Frank helped me take the next steps, closing our joint credit card accounts, setting up a new personal account in my name, and putting all my business finances under tight security. We even drafted a financial affidavit to protect my assets in case things escalated. The hardest part was cutting off May's access to the joint account. I felt guilty, knowing she'd notice, but it had to be done. If she wanted to spend someone else's money, she could go to Jason for it. The next morning, over breakfast, May seemed distracted, checking her phone more than usual. I knew why. The funds she was used to dipping into were suddenly gone. "Hey Alan," she said, trying to sound casual. "Did something happen with the bank? I tried to use the joint card yesterday, and it got declined." I sipped my coffee, acting just as casual. "Yeah, there was some suspicious activity, so I froze the account. Didn't want to take any chances." "Oh," she said, looking uneasy. "You could have told me." "I meant to," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "Been a busy week. I'll sort it out soon." She nodded but didn't press further, though I noticed she was quieter than usual for the rest of the day. That night, I decided it was time to talk to Ryan. I didn't want to involve him, but I couldn't stand the idea of Jason poisoning my son against me any further. After dinner, I asked Ryan if he wanted to shoot some hoops in the driveway. He was thrilled. It had been a while since we'd had time together like that. As we played, I steered the conversation toward Jason. "So, how's school? Still talking about that car Jason showed you?" Ryan grinned. "Yeah, he's got this Mustang that's so cool. He said he might let me drive it when I turned 16. I forced a smile. "That's generous of him. He seems like he's been spending a lot of time with you and Mom." Ryan hesitated, dribbling the ball. "Yeah, I guess. Mom says he's helping her with stuff. You know, work stuff." "What kind of stuff?" I asked, keeping my tone light. Ryan shrugged. "I dunno. She just says he's really supportive. He even came to my basketball game last month when you were out of town." That hit me like a punch to the gut. Jason was showing up to my son's games? Stepping into my role? I didn't push Ryan further, but my resolve hardened. Jason wasn't just a threat to my marriage. He was trying to take over my family. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours, my mind racing. I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt robbed of my wife, my son, and the life I thought I'd built. But if Jason thought he could waltz into my life and take everything I'd worked for, he was dead wrong. The next morning, I woke up with one thought. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Ryan deserved better. I deserved better. It was time to confront May, but I wanted to do it carefully. I needed her to reveal the truth on her own. After dinner that evening, I waited until Ryan had gone upstairs to play video games. May was cleaning up in the kitchen when I leaned against the counter. "Hey, can we talk?" I asked, trying to sound calm. She glanced at me, wary. "Sure, what's up?" I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "Do you think we've been okay lately? I mean, as a couple." Her brow furrowed, and she wiped her hands on a dish towel. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You've been busy with work, I've been busy with the business. It just feels like we're not as connected as we used to be." May's face softened, and for a moment, I thought she might open up. But instead, she gave me a small smile. "That's just life, Alan. We're both juggling a lot. It doesn't mean anything's wrong." I nodded, letting the silence hang between us before I dropped the real question. "So, what's the deal with Jason?" Her reaction was instant. Her face turned pale, and she froze for a second before forcing a laugh. "What do you mean?" "He's my boss." "I mean, Ryan's mentioned him a lot lately," I said, keeping my tone steady. "Seems like you two have been spending a lot of time together. He even went to Ryan's basketball game." Her eyes widened, and she quickly recovered. "Jason was just being supportive. He knew you were out of town and thought it'd be nice to show up. That's all." I crossed my arms, watching her closely. "Funny. He seems to be doing a lot of things that go beyond just being a boss. Fancy lunches, texting late at night. Am I missing something?" Her voice sharpened. "Alan, are you seriously accusing me of something right now?" "I'm just asking," I said calmly. "If there's nothing going on, you don't have anything to worry about, right?" Her face flushed, and she threw the dish towel onto the counter. "I can't believe this. You're being ridiculous. Jason's been a friend, that's all." He's helped me through some tough times at work, and now you're twisting it into something it's not. Am I? I shot back, my voice rising despite myself. Because from where I'm standing, it sure looks like there's more going on. May stared at me, her jaw tight. I can't deal with this right now, she snapped, storming out of the kitchen. I let her go, my heart pounding. It wasn't the full confession I'd hoped for, but her reaction told me everything I needed to know. She was hiding something. I set down the sandpaper and turned to Ryan, trying to steady my voice. I know you think Jason's cool, and I get it. He's flashy, he's got the cars, and he says the right things. But Ryan, have you ever wondered why he's spending so much time with you and Mom? Ryan frowned, his hands pausing mid-sand. What do you mean? He's just being nice. Mom says he's like that with everyone. I put my tools down and leaned forward, looking him in the eye. Being nice is one thing. Inserting himself into someone else's family? That's another. Jason's a grown man, Ryan. He's not doing this out of the goodness of his heart. Ryan's brow furrowed, and he looked away, clearly uncomfortable. I don't see the problem. He's never been anything but cool to me. He even said he might take me to a car show next month. What's wrong with that? I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. Ryan, he's not doing this for you. He's doing it to get closer to your mom. He whipped his head around, his face a mix of confusion and anger. What are you saying? Mom wouldn't do anything wrong. She loves you. You're just jealous because Jason's actually fun to be around. That last part hit me hard, but I let it slide. This isn't about me, son. I know your mom loves you, and I love her too. But sometimes, people don't make the best decisions. Jason isn't just a boss, and he isn't just a friend. He's trying to get between me and your mom. Ryan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You don't know that. You're just mad because he's better than you at. I don't know everything. His words cut deeper than I expected, but I didn't let it show. Ryan, I said softly, I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying it because I need you to be aware of what's really happening. Jason isn't your friend. He's not your mentor. He's trying to replace me. Ryan's face turned red, and his fists clenched. You're wrong. He's a good guy, and you just can't handle it. He stormed out of the garage, slamming the door behind him. I sat there for a while, staring at the half-finished project on the workbench. My chest felt tight, and my thoughts were all over the place. Had I said too much? Not enough? Ryan wasn't just mad, he was hurt. He looked up to Jason in a way he never had with me, and I couldn't help but feel like I'd failed him. Later that night, I heard him upstairs in his room, the faint sound of video games coming through the door. I knocked softly. What? He said, his voice muffled. I opened the door and stepped in. I'm not here to argue. I just want you to know that I love you, no matter what. I know this is hard, and I hate that it's affecting you. He didn't look at me, but I could tell he was listening. I'm not perfect, Ryan. I've made mistakes, and maybe I haven't always been the fun dad you deserve. But I'm here for you, always. That's never going to change. Ryan turned slightly, his expression softer but still guarded. If you love Mom, why are you trying to make her sound bad? I'm not, I said quickly. I love your mom more than anything. That's why I want to protect her, and you, from people like Jason. He's not what he seems, Ryan. I just need you to trust me on that. Ryan didn't reply, but he gave me a small nod before turning back to his game. It wasn't much, but it was something. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't stop replaying the conversation in my head, wondering if I'd pushed too hard. But deep down, I knew I couldn't stand by and let Jason manipulate my son any longer. This wasn't just about May anymore. Jason was trying to take more than my marriage. He was taking my place in my son's life. And that was something I couldn't let happen. The next morning, I was greeted by silence at the breakfast table. Ryan barely looked up from his cereal, and May was glued to her phone, scrolling like nothing else existed. It was the kind of quiet that felt loud, and I knew it was the aftermath of the talk with Ryan. I cleared my throat. Ryan, you need a ride to school today? He shook his head, not meeting my gaze. Nah, I'm walking with Jake. May looked up, finally noticing the tension. Everything okay with you two? We're fine, I said, forcing a smile. Just a father-son disagreement. Ryan snorted softly, but May didn't push it. After he left, I decided to test the waters. You've been on your phone a lot lately. Everything okay at work? May barely glanced at me. Yeah, just keeping up with emails. You know how it is. I nodded, studying her. She seemed calm, but there was a stiffness in her voice. She was hiding something. As soon as she left for work, I grabbed her laptop from the office. I didn't want to invade her privacy again, but I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in my gut. I opened her email and started searching for Jason's name. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. There were dozens of emails, some professional, but others far too personal. He'd sent her photos of fancy resorts and links to high-end restaurants, with messages like, "Can't wait for our next escape. This spot would be perfect for us." And worse, her replies weren't shutting him down. She was laughing at his jokes, agreeing with his suggestions, and sending him selfies that weren't exactly work-appropriate. I slammed the laptop shut, my blood boiling. This wasn't just harmless flirting. It was a full-blown emotional affair, and judging by the messages, it might have been physical too. I called Frank immediately. "She's making this easy for you," Frank said after I explained. "These emails are concrete evidence of infidelity. They'll hold up in court if it comes to that." "I don't want it to come to that," I admitted, running a hand through my hair. "But I'm not letting her destroy everything I've built." Frank walked me through the next steps, tightening my financial defenses even further and preparing for a possible confrontation. He also suggested hiring a private investigator to confirm what I already suspected. It felt surreal, like I was living someone else's life. This wasn't supposed to happen to us. When May came home that evening, she was all smiles, acting like everything was fine. She kissed me on the cheek and started making dinner, chatting about her day like we were a normal family. I played along, but inside, I was seething. How could she act so innocent, knowing what she was doing behind my back? After dinner, Ryan came downstairs and lingered in the kitchen. He was clearly still upset, but he wasn't avoiding me entirely. "Hey," I said, trying to keep it casual. "Want to finish that project we started in the garage?" He hesitated before nodding. "Yeah, okay." We worked in silence for a while, the tension between us heavy. Finally, Ryan spoke up. "I talked to Jake about what you said," he muttered, not looking at me. "And he thinks Jason's sketchy too. Said his dad warned him about guys like that." I put down the drill and turned to face him. "What do you think?" Ryan shrugged, his shoulders slumping. "I don't know. It's just, if you're right, does that mean Mom's lying to me too?" His voice cracked on the last word, and my heart broke a little. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Ryan, I don't know what's going on in your mom's head. But I do know this: no matter what happens, I'll always be honest with you. I'll always have your back." He nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. "Okay," he whispered. It wasn't much, but it felt like progress. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat in the living room, staring at my laptop. The emails, the financial records, the texts, I had all the evidence I needed. But it wasn't just about proving May's betrayal anymore. It was about protecting Ryan, my business, and the life I'd worked so hard to build. Jason thought he could worm his way into my family and take everything I cared about. He thought wrong. The tension in the house grew thicker by the day. May was trying harder than usual to be cheerful, cooking elaborate dinners, asking about my day, but her efforts felt hollow. Ryan was quieter too, like he was trying to figure out who to trust. One evening, I got a text from an unknown number. "You should focus on your business and leave May to someone who appreciates her." My heart pounded as I stared at the screen. It didn't take a genius to figure out who sent it. Jason was finally showing his hand. I didn't respond. Instead, I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Frank. His reply came quickly. "He's getting bold. Don't engage. Save everything." But ignoring Jason wasn't easy. Every time I thought about that text, I felt my blood boil. This wasn't just about May anymore. This guy had the nerve to taunt me in my own home. The next day, I decided to take Frank's advice about hiring a private investigator. If Jason wanted to play games, I'd be ready. The investigator, a no-nonsense woman named Sandra, met me at her office. She listened patiently as I explained the situation, nodding occasionally. "I've dealt with guys like Jason before," she said. "They're cocky, but they're also sloppy. If he's as bold as you say, He's probably left a trail a mile wide. Give me a week. I handed over everything, emails, texts, financial records, and left her office feeling a strange mix of dread and relief. Back at home, May was unusually quiet. She barely looked up from her phone during dinner, and when I asked how her day was, she gave vague answers. Ryan noticed, too. "Mom," he said suddenly, "did you talk to Jason today?" May froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Why would you ask that?" Ryan shrugged, but his eyes were sharp. "I just figured you might have. You talk to him a lot." May's cheeks flushed, and she forced a laugh. "Jason's my boss, Ryan. Of course I talk to him. That's how jobs work." Ryan didn't respond, but the way he stared at her made it clear he wasn't buying her excuse. Later that night, I found Ryan in his room, headphones on, scrolling through his phone. I knocked on the doorframe, and he pulled one earbud out. "What? Can we talk?" I asked, stepping inside. He sighed but didn't stop me. "What's up?" I sat on the edge of his bed, trying to find the right words. "I know this is hard on you. I wish it didn't have to be, but I need you to know something. No matter what happens, none of this is your fault." Ryan looked away, his jaw tight. "I just don't get why this is happening. Everything was fine, and now it's like we're falling apart." I put a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes, people make choices that hurt the people they love. It doesn't mean they don't care, it just means they're human. But that doesn't make it right." He nodded slowly, his expression softening. "Do you think you and Mom are gonna, split up?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't have an answer, so I gave him the only truth I could. "I don't know, Ryan. But whatever happens, I promise you, we'll get through it together." He nodded again, but I could see the tears in his eyes. The next morning, Sandra called with an update. "I found something you'll want to see," she said. "Meet me at my office." When I got there, she handed me a folder filled with photos and documents. "I followed Jason for 3 days," she explained. "He met with May twice, once at a hotel and once at a restaurant. These pictures confirm they're more than just co-workers." The photos showed May and Jason sitting close at a candlelit table, leaning in like they were sharing secrets. Another showed them entering a hotel together. My stomach turned as I flipped through the pages. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a slap in the face. Sandra wasn't done. I also did some digging into Jason's finances. He's in serious debt, gambling, unpaid loans, the works. He's not just using May for company, he's using her for money. I clenched my fists, my mind racing. Jason wasn't just ruining my marriage, he was trying to bleed us dry. "You've got enough here to confront her," Sandra said, her tone sympathetic. "Or to take legal action if that's the route you want to go." I nodded, my jaw tight. "Thank you." When I got home that evening, May was waiting for me in the living room. She looked nervous, like she knew the walls were closing in. "We need to talk," she said, her voice trembling. I dropped my bag by the door and crossed my arms. "You're right. We do." May stood there, fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. She wouldn't meet my eyes, which only fueled the anger bubbling inside me. I was tired of the games, the lies, the false normalcy. "What do you want to talk about?" I asked, my voice low and steady. She hesitated, then sat down on the edge of the couch. "I feel like there's something off between us lately. You've been distant, and I don't know why." I couldn't help but laugh, a bitter, humorless sound. "You don't know why? Really, May? You're going to sit there and pretend like you have no idea what's going on?" Her face paled, but she didn't say anything. I dropped the folder Sandra had given me onto the coffee table with a loud thud. "Here. Why don't you take a look? Maybe this will help jog your memory." May stared at the folder like it was a ticking bomb. Slowly, she reached for it and flipped it open. The color drained from her face as she saw the photos, her and Jason at the restaurant, entering the hotel, standing too close for just co-workers. "Alan, Don't," I snapped, cutting her off. "Don't even try to explain this away. I've seen the texts, the emails. I know about the money. And now this? You've been lying to me, to Ryan, to everyone." She closed the folder, her hands trembling. "It's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like." I shouted, finally losing the control I'd been clinging to. "You've been sneaking around with him, draining our accounts, and for what? Because he's flashy? Because he gives you attention? What about me? What about our family? Tears streamed down her face, but I didn't feel sympathy. Not this time. I never meant for it to go this far, she whispered. I shook my head, disgusted. That's your excuse? It just happened? You didn't think about what this would do to Ryan? To me? She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. Save it. I've already talked to a lawyer. I've already taken steps to protect what's mine. You and Jason aren't going to bleed me dry. Her eyes widened in shock. Alan, I didn't. I wasn't trying to. Stop lying. I roared, slamming my hand on the table. I've had enough of your excuses, your half-truths. You've been caught, May. Just admit it. She broke down, sobbing into her hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Alan. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean to hurt Ryan. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But the damage was done. What do you want me to say? I asked, my voice hoarse. That I forgive you? That we can just move on from this? Because we can't. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again. She didn't respond, just sat there crying. I stood up, feeling like the walls were closing in. I need some air, I muttered, grabbing my keys. As I left the house, I heard her whisper behind me, please don't give up on us. I didn't look back. Outside, the cool night air did little to calm the storm raging inside me. I drove aimlessly, my mind racing. How had it come to this? How had the life I'd worked so hard to build crumbled so quickly? Eventually, I parked at a quiet overlook, staring out at the distant city lights. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Ryan. Dad, are you okay? Mom's been crying. I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. I'm okay. I'll be home soon. I wasn't okay. Not even close. But I couldn't let Ryan see me like this. He needed me to be strong, even if I felt like I was falling apart. As I sat there, I made a decision. This wasn't over. Jason might have thought he'd won, but he underestimated me. I wasn't going to let him destroy my family, or my future. I started the car, the determination settling like a weight in my chest. It was time to take back control. When I got home, the house was quiet. May was still in the living room, her face blotchy from crying, but she didn't say a word as I walked past her. Upstairs, I found Ryan sitting at his desk, headphones on, pretending not to notice me. Hey, I said softly, tapping his shoulder. He pulled off the headphones and turned to me, his expression guarded. Are you okay? I sighed, sitting on the edge of his bed. Not really, but I'm here. That's what matters, right? Ryan hesitated, then nodded. I heard you and Mom arguing earlier. What's going on? It was the moment I'd been dreading. I didn't want to drag him into this, but I couldn't lie to him, either. Ryan, I began, choosing my words carefully. You know how I said Jason isn't what he seems? He nodded slowly. Well, I found out that he's been more than just a boss to your mom. They've been seeing each other behind my back. Ryan's face twisted in confusion. What do you mean? Like friends? No, I said firmly. Not just friends. He's been trying to replace me, not just with your mom but with you too. Ryan stared at me, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. That's not true. Mom wouldn't do that. You're just mad at Jason because he's better than you. His words stung, but I kept my voice steady. I know this is hard to hear. I didn't want to believe it, either. But I have proof, Ryan. I've seen the messages, the photos. I'm not making this up. Ryan stood abruptly, pacing back and forth. Why are you telling me this? You're trying to make me hate Mom. That's what this is about, isn't it? No, I said, standing up to face him. I'm telling you because I need you to understand the truth. This isn't your fault, and it's not about choosing sides. But you deserve to know what's really going on. He stopped pacing and looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. What's going to happen now? I didn't have a good answer for him. I don't know yet. But no matter what happens, I'm here for you. Always. Ryan wiped his eyes angrily, like he was mad at himself for crying. I hate this, he muttered. I hate Jason. I hate all of it. I stepped closer, putting a hand on his shoulder. Me too, buddy. But we're going to get through it. Together. Ryan nodded reluctantly, his tears still falling. The next day, Ryan was distant, but I noticed he wasn't texting as much as usual. When I asked him about it, he shrugged. I just don't feel like talking to anyone. Later that evening, May came to me while I was working in the garage. Her face was puffy, her eyes red from crying. "Alan," she began, her voice shaky, "I know I've hurt you. I know I've made mistakes, but can we please talk about this? I don't want to lose our family." I set down my tools and crossed my arms, leaning against the workbench. "Talk? Sure. Let's talk about how you've been sneaking around with Jason, lying to me, lying to Ryan, and draining our accounts while you play house with him." She flinched at my words. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, May?" I interrupted. "Because from where I'm standing, it sure looks like you were willing to throw away everything we've built for a guy who doesn't give a damn about you or our family." Tears welled up in her eyes again. "I made a mistake, Alan. I was lonely, and Jason, he made me feel special. But it didn't mean anything." I laughed bitterly. "Didn't mean anything? You've been seeing him for months, May. You let him come to Ryan's games, for God's sake. That's not nothing." She took a shaky breath. "I'll end it. I'll cut him off completely. Please, Alan. Don't give up on us." I stared at her, my emotions warring inside me. Part of me wanted to believe her, to give her one more chance for Ryan's sake. But the other part of me couldn't forget the betrayal, the lies, the damage she'd already done. "I don't know if I can," I said finally. "You didn't just hurt me, May. You hurt Ryan. You let this man come into our lives and drive a wedge between us. How am I supposed to move past that?" She broke down sobbing, but I didn't move to comfort her. When she finally left the garage, I sat there in silence, staring at the half-finished project Ryan and I had been working on. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear: Jason might have started this, but I was going to finish it. After May's breakdown in the garage, things in the house felt even more strained. She tiptoed around me, and Ryan avoided her completely. The weight of her betrayal hung heavy over everything, and I knew we couldn't go on like this. If May thought I'd let this slide, she didn't know me at all. I had spent years building my business from the ground up, teaching Ryan about hard work and integrity, and sacrificing to give us a good life. I wasn't going to let Jason destroy all of that. The next morning, I met with Sandra again. "I need you to dig deeper into Jason," I told her, my voice firm. "Whatever skeletons he has, I want them all. I need leverage." Sandra nodded, a slight smile on her face. "I was hoping you'd say that. I've already found some interesting leads." She handed me a stack of papers. "Jason's got a history of lawsuits, fraud, unpaid debts, even a restraining order from an ex-wife. He's been sued by former employees for withholding wages, and there's a pending investigation into tax evasion. This guy's a walking time bomb." As I flipped through the documents, my anger turned into determination. Jason wasn't just a homewrecker, he was a con man. Sandra leaned back in her chair, studying me. "So what's the plan?" I looked up, my jaw set. "We use this. He wants to mess with my family? Fine. Let's see how he likes it when the spotlight's on him." Over the next few days, Sandra and I worked to compile everything we needed. Meanwhile, I stayed civil with May, though the tension between us was palpable. Ryan had started opening up to me more, asking questions about what was going on. "Are you going to make Jason pay?" he asked one evening while we were shooting hoops in the driveway. I paused, the ball resting in my hands. "What do you think I should do?" Ryan looked down, kicking at the pavement. "I just want him gone. He's ruined everything." I nodded, tossing the ball back to him. "Don't worry, son. He'll get what's coming to him." A week later, I put my plan into motion. I arranged to meet Jason at his dealership under the pretense of discussing a business opportunity. Sandra had helped me draft a professional-sounding email, and Jason's ego did the rest. When I arrived, he greeted me with his usual smug grin, extending a hand. "Alan. Glad you could make it. Heard a lot about you from May." I ignored his hand, stepping into his office. "Yeah, I'm sure you have." Jason raised an eyebrow, clearly picking up on my tone. "What's this about, exactly?" I dropped the folder of evidence onto his desk, the same way I had with May. "This is about you staying out of my family's life." He opened the folder, flipping through the photos and documents, his smirk fading. "What the hell is this?" "It's everything I've got on you," I said coldly. Your lawsuits, your shady deals, your debts, and your little affair with my wife. Jason's face turned red, and he stood up, trying to loom over me. You can't prove anything. I didn't flinch. Oh, I can. And if you don't back off, I'll make sure everyone knows who you really are, your employees, your clients, even the authorities. How do you think your little empire will hold up under scrutiny? He sputtered, trying to find his footing. You're bluffing. I leaned in, my voice low and dangerous. Try me. Jason stared at me for a long moment, then sank back into his chair, his confidence deflating. What do you want? It's simple, I said. You cut all contact with May. No more texts, no more emails, no more games. And if I even hear your name again, I'll bury you. He glared at me, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Fine, he muttered. You've made your point. I turned to leave, but paused at the door. One more thing. If you ever try to contact my son again, you'll wish lawsuits were your biggest problem. With that, I walked out, leaving him to stew in his failure. When I got home, May was waiting for me in the kitchen. She looked anxious, wringing her hands. Where were you? Taking care of business, I said curtly, grabbing a glass of water. Her face fell, but she didn't push further. Later that night, Ryan came to me with a small smile. You did something, didn't you? I ruffled his hair, smiling for the first time in weeks. Let's just say Jason won't be a problem anymore. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I'd regained some control. But I knew the battle wasn't over. Jason kept his word, at least for now. May's phone stopped buzzing with his messages, and she seemed relieved, though the weight of her guilt hadn't lifted. She was quieter, more withdrawn, as if realizing how deep a hole she'd dug for herself. Ryan was cautious around her. He'd talk to her when he had to but avoided being in the same room for long. Their once easy relationship felt strained, like he was testing how much he could trust her again. One evening, May tried to bridge the gap. Ryan, do you want to watch a movie with me? We haven't done that in a while. He hesitated, glancing at me for a moment before shaking his head. Not tonight. Her face crumpled, but she didn't argue. After he left the room, she turned to me, her voice trembling. I'm trying, Alan. I don't know how to fix this. I looked at her, my expression hard. It's not just about trying, May. It's about proving you deserve another chance, and that's going to take time. Don't expect Ryan or me to bounce back overnight. She nodded, tears in her eyes, but didn't say anything else. That night, as I lay awake, I wondered if things would ever feel normal again. The weeks that followed were tense but steady. May stayed true to her word. There were no more secretive phone calls or mysterious outings. She even handed over her phone without me asking, saying, I want to prove I have nothing to hide. It was a small step, but I wasn't ready to let my guard down. Ryan, on the other hand, was struggling more openly. He had stopped mentioning Jason entirely, but the hurt was still there. I decided we needed time together, just the two of us. Ryan, how about a weekend fishing trip? I asked one evening. We could use some fresh air. He hesitated before nodding. Yeah, okay. That sounds good. Out on the lake, surrounded by nothing but water and sky, Ryan finally opened up. Do you think Mom really means it? He asked, staring at the rippling water. I don't know, I admitted. But I think she wants to make things right. Whether she can or not, that's up to her, and it's up to us to decide if we can forgive her. Ryan nodded slowly. I don't want things to go back to the way they were before Jason. I want them to be better. I reached over, gripping his shoulder. Me too, buddy. And we'll get there. It's just going to take time. For the first time in weeks, I saw a hint of hope in his eyes. Back at home, May approached me cautiously one evening after Ryan had gone to bed. Alan, she began, her voice trembling, I know I've broken your trust, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need to know, do we still have a chance? I looked at her, the weight of everything she'd done pressing down on me. May, I don't know. I'm here for Ryan, and I'm trying to keep this family together. But forgiveness isn't something I can just give, it has to be earned. She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll prove to you and Ryan that I can be better. Good, I said firmly. Because if you ever put us through this again, there won't be another conversation. She swallowed hard, whispering, I understand. It wasn't resolution, but it was a start. Over the next few months, Life slowly found a new rhythm. May put in the effort, attending therapy, being open with her time and money, and focusing on rebuilding her relationship with Ryan. He was still guarded, but I could see glimpses of the bond they once had. For me, it was harder. Forgiveness wasn't immediate, and trust came even slower. But I stayed focused on what mattered: Ryan, my business, and creating a stable home. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, Ryan looked up and said, "Dad, I think we should finish that project in the garage. Together." I smiled, the tension in my chest loosening just a bit. I'd like that. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were scars that might never fully heal. But as I watched Ryan laugh at one of May's jokes for the first time in months, I realized something: we were still a family, and for now that was enough.